सेव किया था ना?
मैं सिर्फ इसलिए गया था क्योंकि उसने मुझे कॉल किया, that's it. But listen तो.
Save it for someone else.
जिंदगी में सेव करना जरूरी है, मगर जब बात पैसों की हो, सिर्फ सेविंग से काम नहीं चलेगा। इक्विटी म्यूचुअल फंड्स में इन्वेस्ट कीजिए और अपने सेविंग्स को आगे बढ़ने का मौका दीजिए।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Nothing is more fun for political journalists, for us political journalists, than to see Parliament in session and Parliament functioning. Because for too long we've got used to seeing the Parliament assemble, then some hangama take place there, and then Parliament is adjourned. This has not started today, this has gone on for almost 2 decades now. So on the odd day or on the odd few days when Parliament does hold debates, these are great days for us political journalists. Particularly, even among these days, days on which the preeminent leaders of the country speak, preeminent leaders of the government, that can only be the Prime Minister to begin with, and then there can be other ministers, but Prime Minister because he is the preeminent leader of the government of the day, and also the most important or preeminent leader of the opposition, which in this case is Rahul Gandhi, for the simple reason that the Congress party has the largest number of seats after the BJP in Lok Sabha, distant second, a very distant second, but ahead of all other opposition parties. So these 2 days, we've seen Rahul Gandhi and the Prime Minister. Rahul Gandhi speak first, and this is a discussion in response to the President's speech on the motion of thanks for President's speech. President, as we know, when the President speaks to Parliament, this is a text that the government of the day has prepared, and so the President, then gives the government's report card and plans to the nation through Parliament, and that is then debated by all sides. There is a motion of thanks that is then debated. Obviously, the government side supports whatever the President said. The opposition side opposes it because they are questioning the government of the day. At the same time, they also raise other issues. Both sides raise other issues. So this is a major debate. That's what's going on. Now, Rahul Gandhi spoke yesterday. I am recording this on Wednesday. So Rahul Gandhi spoke on Tuesday. This, if you look at the whole speech, I'll share a link with you. It's about 51 minutes. 51 minutes has a few interruptions here and there, but he speaks slowly, so it's 51 minutes. Mr. Modi's speech today, that's also a substantive speech. Now, if you look at the 2 speeches, you can play both. I will share both the links with you. If you hear both speeches, you will think that one is talking about one thing, that's Rahul Gandhi, one is talking about something else. So it's not as if one is responding to the other, right? At the same time, if you look underneath the layers, you will see that after what Rahul Gandhi said, a lot of his speech was about Adani. About Adani, a lot of it has now got expunged from parliamentary record, and that is what Congress party is complaining about. They are calling it censorship. They are saying this is the death of democracy, etc., etc. But lot has been expunged. But Rahul Gandhi, out of defiance, has put out his entire speech, the video of his entire speech that's available in public. So the Prime Minister has responded to a lot of the things that Rahul Gandhi has said, but not specifically, not in any detail, not naming anybody, but using a broad brush. For example, where Rahul Gandhi says that, see, he went to Australia, Adani got a loan from State Bank of India. He went to Dhaka, Adani got a power purchase agreement with Bangladesh government. He went to Israel, the Prime Minister went to Israel, and Adani got agreements with Israeli defense companies, etc., etc. So the point he's made is that wherever PM Modi has gone, Adani has gone in his wake, or with him or after him, and has benefited. So foreign policy has become Adani policy. The Prime Minister, on the other hand, responds, as I told you, with a very broad brush by saying, listen, till the other day, you used to say that India's reputation, India's strength, India's value in the world, right, is down, right? India's authority is down. It has declined under the BJP. And now you're saying that India's authority or India's clout is so much that it can arm twist other countries to change their decisions. So he's not responded to any of the specifics, but he's responded to the basic charge. And that is how these two speeches have to be read. So what you cannot do is, what I cannot do for you also is to make a table which he says, this is what Rahul Gandhi said, this is how Narendra Modi responded, because it wasn't like that. At the same time, it was generally in the same larger context. If you ask me to describe what this means is that when somebody says, tell me your name, you say, this is my date of birth, I was born in such and such place, right? That is how this debate has taken place. So first of all, because the Prime Minister's speech is more recent, that took place today. In that speech, he started with a crack at Rahul Gandhi. He said some people got so pleased with their speech that they could not even wake up in time. That's because Rahul Gandhi might have been late coming into parliament. And then, without referring to anything specific that Rahul Gandhi said, he referred to many things. He said, look, there are achievements of people of India. A lot of the success is because of the hard work of people of India. But you people in the opposition don't want to accept it. And that's when we say that, look, they are so pleased with themselves that they are not even here. They say, as I just mentioned to you, that they focus on the global stature of India. And they used to say that it has declined. And now they are saying, now they are charging us with using that same stature, which apparently they say declined, to arm twist other countries into taking some decisions. He doesn't say decisions in favor of Adani, but you can see what the reference is to. Then the Prime Minister unleashes quite a bit of poetry today. So my colleague Unnati Sharma, she's very bilingual and she knows Hindi poetry. So she's taken these down. I was also listening to it, and I think some of these are familiar lines. For example, the Hase Kavi, or the great poet of humor and satire of the 60s, Kaka Hathrasi. The Prime Minister brought him back, and from Kaka Hathrasi he said, "Aga picha dekh kar kyun hote gamgeen, Jaki jaisi bhavna वैसा दिखे scene." So he is referring to the opposition's what he calls as negativity. That you're looking around, why are you in such a bad mood? Why are you caught in such negativity? Because you know what? When you look around, the scene would look exactly as you want to see it. It would depend on what your mood is, what your prejudices are, what your predilections are, right? It's tough. I know it's very tough to translate poetry, and that too Kaka Hathrasi, but I tried. So if I didn't get it right, apologies. I will again repeat it in Hindi. Aga picha dekh kar kyun hote gamgeen? Gamgeen is sad, despondent. Jaki jaisi bhavna वैसा दिखे scene. Then again taking a crack at Rahul Gandhi, because every time Rahul Gandhi speaks, he becomes active. His support base becomes active, right? And they think that now this is Rahul's relaunch. Now Rahul is here. Rahul has now just staged this huge Padyatra, which has made impact. In fact, we had an episode of CutTheClutter not long back, I think about 2 weeks back, talking about the 10 gains he might have made from this Padyatra. So once again, it's a crack at Rahul Gandhi without getting into any specifics. He says, and this is a line that he has taken from Jigar Muradabadi, again a well-known poet of our times. ये कह कर के हम दिल को बहला रहे हैं, वो अब चल चुके हैं, वो अब आ रहे हैं. That look, these people are trying to humor themselves all the time by making the same presumptions that he started moving and he is now arriving. Obviously, he's using this sarcastically, that every time Rahul Gandhi speaks and these people as in Congress supporters or Modi's opponents, they start thinking that Rahul is now rising, and then something happens. So it's one of those occasions, big deal. And the third poet he quotes actually is Dushyant Kumar. Now Dushyant Kumar is more contemporary. He's also the poet that the left liberal constituency quotes a lot. Left liberal younger constituency quotes a lot. You know what? If you saw the movie Masan, then it's a kind of theme song. तू जब रेल से गुजरती है मैं पुल सा थरथराता हूँ. That is Dushyant Kumar's line, right? So this is a more contemporary poet. So again Modi quotes poet Dushyant Kumar and his line, तुम्हारे पाँव के नीचे ज़मीन नहीं है, कमाल ये है कि फिर भी तुम्हें यकीन नहीं है. That means you're not sure of the ground you are standing on. And yet you don't want to believe it. You are delusional. So he's used lines from these 3 different poets of different decades to make his larger point. Each one is used as sarcasm against Rahul Gandhi and the Congress party. So don't say that he has not responded. He has responded, but he has responded in generalities. He has not responded to any of the specifics. So if the opposition says, look, he has not responded to any of the charges, they are right. And if the Prime Minister supporter said, look, why should he answer any specifics? That's not for him. But he has used broad strokes to answer all the questions. For example, when Rahul Gandhi talks about the misuse of the agencies, the Prime Minister says, look, ED has now united all opposition parties. So he's answering the charge in his own way. There is no culture anymore of anybody answering any specific charge. So that we know about. And in any case, we've seen the method with Mr. Modi, and this has gone on right since he became Chief Minister of Gujarat, is to not respond to specific charges, but to raise larger questions or make larger statements. This time also he said, look, you've been trying to throw mud at me for 22 years, right? He takes you right back to 2001 in Gujarat. It hasn't worked and it's not going to work now because I am popular. And then what he does is he counts all the achievements of his government vis-a-vis the poor. Free delivery of grain, for example, free delivery of money in the accounts of farmers and things like that. And he says 140 crore people are my shield. And then because Rahul Gandhi quoted Harvard University, he mentioned Harvard University a couple of times. In fact, if you listen to his speech carefully, he's not quoting a Harvard study. He's saying there should be a Harvard study, right, on how Adani has grown so fast and so big. So the Prime Minister says that some people like to quote Harvard studies all the time. Let me remind them that there is another new Harvard study, and that study is titled The Rise and Decline of the Congress Party. Now, what are the things that Rahul is talking about? This was the Prime Minister's response. That was today. Yesterday, what Rahul, and a lot of that got expunged, but he's repeating it outside, and he's also quite defiantly shared on social media. His party has shared on social media his entire speech. Now, I haven't quite counted how many times did Adani feature there, but maybe at least 25 to 30 times. So we can call it pretty much is Adani's speech. And what is the burden of this speech? He says, look, when I did my Padyatra, there were questions, farmers had questions about MSP, tribals had questions about their fate, and he's very sharp there. He says tribals, for tribals he says Adivasis, and he says Adivasis, Vanvasi nahi, because Vanvasi is the name that BJP and RSS have for tribal communities. Whereas in his campaigns, in his Padyatra, even when he walked through Gujarat briefly, he said that it's unfair to call them Vanvasi. They are Adivasis. They are the natives. Adi means old, native. It's unfair to call them Vanvasi. So that's an ideological argument that he has on the description of tribals. So once again he says Adivasis, not Vanvasi. So they have complaints. They mentioned their complaints. But he said, look, a lot of the questions were about Modi ji and Adani ji. And he raises some questions. He says either it's Mr. Modi going in Adani's plane. That happened, by the way, before Mr. Modi was sworn in Prime Minister. But he came in from Gujarat to Delhi in an Adani aircraft. So Rahul Gandhi says sometimes Modi ji is in Adani's plane, or Adani is in Modi's plane. Or when Modi ji goes somewhere, Adani reaches there either at the same time or immediately after, and he gets a lot of contracts. And then he goes on to do something which we haven't seen very much of before. He mentions a recent former Prime Minister of Britain. And he says Boris Johnson's son, then he says no, brother, then he says brother and son both are employed by Gautam Adani. And then he says in summary, because he's summing these questions up, he's saying how much money has Adani paid the BJP in the last 20 years. He also said that he's been meeting young people who ask him, how did Mr. Adani get such a business acumen? How can we get such a business acumen? And there he says, and that is where he says that there should be a Harvard study on how this happened. And he says the study will probably find out that when you can combine politics plus business, and for doing that, Adani should get a gold medal. You know, I told you this speech was almost entirely about Adani. So Adani for the Congress party is the new Rafale. And then he concludes by using lines that a BJP speaker had used before him in a different context, of course. And he said, he did my job. And these lines are, coming together is a beginning, keeping together is progress, working together is success. Now, who's coming together? who's keeping together, who's working together. You can fill in the blanks. If you listen to his entire speech, there is no problem filling in the blanks. Then he says some other interesting things, none of which the Prime Minister has answered specifically, but I suspect when the relevant ministers speak up, they will address these. For example, Agniveer. He says that on his Padyatra, he met a lot of veterans, including retired generals, who said the army never wanted this Agniveer scheme. And people are upset that, look, earlier we served in the army for 15 years, then we got a pension. Now, after 4 years, we'll be out with nothing to do, what to do. And he said people he's been speaking to, retired generals, etc., they are saying the army never wanted this scheme. This has been thrust upon the army by the RSS and the Home Ministry. That's very significant that he mentions the Home Ministry. Then he goes on to mention Ajit Doval also, the National Security Advisor. And he says, those are the people who thrust this Agniveer scheme on the army. And then he says, look, these people are being trained to use firearms. In 4 years, they'll be out on the street. And that is what is going to lead to street violence. And as I've been mentioning again and again, this was an Adani speech, so he mentioned some figures. He said Adani, when Modi government came to power, Adani was 609 in the global wealth index. How did he rise to 2? He says in 2014, Adani's net worth was $8 billion. How did it rise to $140 billion? And as he said that, then his supporters, the Congress party MPs, were thumping the tables and also chanting, Modi hai to mumkin hai. And then he goes on to give some analysis. He says, how did Adani and Modi come together? He says when Mr. Modi became chief minister, Gujarat was in a bad way and Mr. Adani reached out and he said, I will give you a plan for a resurgent Gujarat or a vibrant Gujarat. And I will get all the businessmen together for you and build this story. And that's how it happened. And then he goes on to say that today, Adani controls 24% of the air traffic in the country, 21% of the air freight in the country. Now, a lot of it will be from Mumbai airport, which Adani bought. And he says that Mumbai airport was actually the previous owners, the GVK group, were forced under duress from the agencies who raided them to sell this airport to the Adanis. The previous owner, head of GVK, that is Sanjay Reddy, he has meanwhile issued statements. He's appeared on TV channels. So I must get that right as well. I must make that mention as well. He's appeared on TV channels saying that there was no pressure on him and he sold Mumbai airport to Adani's of his own volition. But once again, Rahul Gandhi goes on to say that when airports were privatized in our times, that is Congress's times, there were rules that airports could not be given to a company that did not have prior experience in running airports, etc., etc. All those rules have been changed and all the changes have been made to benefit only one group. And then he goes on to say that this is a group which, according to Hindenburg report, has shell companies. We don't know whose money it is. And this group is now, besides owning key airports, ports, etc., data centers, it is also getting heavily into defense, particularly after the joint ventures it has signed in Israel. So that is the sum and total of his speech. So once again, what are the takeaways? One takeaway is that Adani is the new Rafale. And this is a theme that I think it would be safe to presume that will carry Rahul Gandhi through to the campaigning until the next election, right? Remember last time in the run-up of the 2019 election, he had come up with the slogan, Chaukidar Chor hai. And that continued on through state elections of that year. Now we are in the corresponding year. So again, the same states will go to the polls, Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Rajasthan. I'm only counting the key states, the big states. So this theme, Adani theme, will continue and chances are that this will then endure right up to the general elections. Let us see how that works, but Rahul Gandhi is counting on it. Narendra Modi, on the other hand, in his response has made it quite clear that he is using his popularity, which is obvious. He's using his popularity as a shield. He's saying that, look, too many people have seen me do good work. People by and large do not think I will do anything that will harm the country, or at least enough people in the country in terms of the votes will not believe that I will do anything to harm the country. I do not believe any of this will stick because see what I'm doing. I'm building houses for the poor, I'm building toilets for the poor, I'm sending money to farmers, 12 crore farmers. I'm also sending free grain or subsidized grain to so many people, and India has had much less terror, etc., etc. So once again, in conclusion, specific allegations, specific charges from one side, a broad brush response from the other, but overall 2 days of really lively parliament debate. And I do hope this continues. For the rest of the session, more people speak and we do not have sudden adjournments and just washing out of the rest of the session.